What will you do to unlock innovation? In today's fast-paced world, innovation might not be enough. Tomorrow's pioneers of change will need to be agile, able to adapt, and committed like never before. Your host, Sannah Vinding, invites you to listen in and join business leaders from around the world as they share their visions for success in our future business challenges.
Right.
Welcome to Mind Innovation. I'm your host, Sannah Vinding. I'm always excited to learn. And in today's podcast, we'll talk about speed to market and how to succeed with lean, agile, and product development. I want to welcome Steve Stucky. He has 30 years of product development experience in the industry of industrial manufacturing and also in medical devices. He's known for improving product development performance, driving organic growth, and building highly effective teams. He's an agile lean product development coach, and he's also the president of the Minneapolis chapter PDMA. Welcome, Steve. I'm so happy that you're on my podcast today.
Thank you, Sannah. I really appreciate being here today. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. So let's jump into it. So tell me about your passion for the lean agile mindset. What's been your journey?
Yes, thank you. It's been a great journey. It's been, in many ways, the second education that I went through when I jumped into learning lean as a practitioner in my industrial manufacturing days, and seeing what it can do in an organization when it's applied really as a strategic initiative to improve performance. So watched and led the lean implementation in our transactions from order to ship. Saw halving of our time it took to be able to serve customers, improving performance. Really saw that focusing on continuous improvement led to a much better way that the business could serve customers and more engaged and enthusiastic employees. Applied that to product development and saw how we could shrink cycle times from idea to launch, just like we were shrinking delivery times from order to ship through continuous improvement and ways to think about how you can improve the way that work is done. So been a student, been a practitioner, and have a real passion for figuring out ways to improve work through lean methods.
We have the same passion here. So tell me, why should organization consider adapting agile lean practices in product development? What's behind it?
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of times when we think about lean and agile and product development, first of all, lean doesn't really connect to a lot of people about product development because it's really kind of an operations thing. But yes, it is, that's where it started, but it's been migrating toward product development through Lean Office and then into product development over a number of years. And the methodology is the same sort of principles, but just applied differently for product development. The bottom line is for product development, when you think about agile and lean practice, is about better products faster. It's about ways that you can understand how to improve the performance of teams, how you can improve the way that teams are really focused on what's important for the business. And at the end of the day, build sustainable, profitable growth for the business through better product development. Elimination of waste. There's a lot of waste in most businesses' product development practices. And it's about focusing on how to make sure that teams can deliver what's important for the business in a shorter cycle time than they're able to do today.
Yeah. So when you go out and help companies, do you have like success stories that you show first, or how do you go in and do assessment to get them to open their eyes and lean in on it? How do you start that approach?
So I have an assessment that we can go in and first of all, it starts with an understanding that there's an opportunity for improvement from the leadership team and a desire to do so. And the assessment really looks at all the different success factors of product development, and we can from there decide what the most important areas of focus would be for improvement. Yeah. And this assessment came out of my own experience and learning from others about how it's important to really focus on the ways that you can improve product development. One of the industrial businesses that I was at, we came in with an opportunity to improve speed to market, and over a 3-year period, we improved it by an average of 30%. So there's, and some projects were 50, 60% faster. So it's really an opportunity to be able to think about a kind of a holistic way to take a lean and an agile mindset to product development to improve performance.
Yeah. So just another, I'm curious about here. So when you go in, is it mostly developing and teaching the new methods, or do you also go in and review the tools, like a software tools, how they actually communicate? Is it both, assessment on both, or is it mostly on the methodology?
It's actually both. So it's a process of taking a look at what tools and processes are in place, but it's also changing, thinking about ways to improve the way that work is done.
Yeah.
So when I think about lean and agile applied to product development, I really think about a holistic approach that's really laid out in, say, 3 layers. The process layer itself, which is the work that you do in product development. And there's, in many businesses, a lot of waste in the process itself. So it's finding, like with Kaizen type events, ways to eliminate waste and waiting time in the product development process. But it shouldn't stop there. Once the process focus is in place, then it's also about the practice layer, which is about how teams work together. And this is where Agile comes into play. This is where acceleration events can be done, which is like Kaizen type events, but for product development teams to get a large amount of work done in a short period of time. It's about the ways that teams can be a lot more efficient and effective working together using Agile practices. And then another layer, so the process, the practice, another layer is what they call pipeline management. And that's where the management of the product development pipeline, what you're deciding to develop, is managed for the most effective way for cross-functional teams to work together. And what I mean by that is, in a lot of cases, it's not really clear if you're at a team level what your priorities might be. It may be that one function might have one set of priorities and another function might have another, and you have challenges at the boundary between functions to what you work on. So effective pipeline management is a top-down approach to ranking of projects and making sure that the whole organization knows what they should be working on in an effective way. But it's also understanding what your capacity is in the organization. It's my experience that many companies don't know how much they overwhelm development with too many projects all at once. Too many cars on the highway is what it's called, right? And that leads to a lot of time that's spent in non-value added activity for developers. So a lot of focus around this pipeline management area can improve speed of project really effectively. It's about making tough decisions about what you can and what you can't do on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and be honest about it, right? I think the one where you're saying if you have too many projects going on, just the time it takes for you to sit down and concentrate on it. If you have too many and going in and out of them all the time, it's not giving you the benefit. It's better to have fewer, and then you can actually have them as batches, right? And then you can complete
absolutely.
it.
I'll give you an example of that. So it's anecdotal, but it's somewhere between, say, 5 and 10% of a developer's day is spent in just being on a team. So that's just overhead associated with being on a team meetings, the hallway conversations that we used to have, pre-COVID, those types of things, writing reports, being a team member itself is an overhead. So if you have really key developers in your organization and they're on 5, 6 projects, you may be taking half of their day, 50% of their day up in non-value added required time, or what's called enabling time. And what you want to do is to think about from a lean perspective that all work falls into 3 buckets. There's value add, there's non-value add, but required time, then there's pure waste. And it's been my experience that there's a lot of time in people's day that is spent in the 2 buckets other than value add. So what lean product development tries to do through pipeline management is by focusing people's efforts and what's most important and taking a number of too many projects off their plate, is to make sure that value add percentage in people's day goes up as much as possible.
Yeah. So that touches a little bit on behaviors as well. How do you coach a team? Because if you're saying, hey, the value added, That's where we want to have you to spend most of your time. You still have a little bit of your email being on the team, right? You can't just take that out. That's still there.
Mhm.
But how do you, with the behaviors, how do you go in and tell them to say, if it's suddenly something comes up, that they can flag it and saying, hey, do I really need to work on this? Or, what I'm seeing on the strategy, or what I need to, based on prioritization, this is my focus. Because just not touching it is not good for an organization either, but it's good for the organization to have somebody, just, if you're saying you're flagging it, and then you get aligned as a team, and then you work in the right direction.
Right. Yeah, that's really important. So I think one of the ways to do that is with this pipeline management area is to publish a 4-strength list of projects so people know across the organization where they should be spending their time first. And what you want to do is have people try to do as much as possible to eliminate bad multitasking. What I mean by that is, what you want to do is communicate that you want to work down the priority list in a way that says, okay, I can get all the work done on this project as possible, and then move to the next, and then move to the next. And, that's a little counterintuitive, because most people want to be really good team members, and they'll want to put time into every project every day. But you can actually, it's really proven that if you allow for focus and do all the work on the top priority projects first, and then move to the next and the next, it'll increase the flow of project work through your development pipeline really significantly. What happens in many people's day is all the interruptions, right? And you need to give people the authority to say,
close down the email box, right?
I've got this other thing I need to get done as my priority, because it's the organizational focus. And and that's a cultural thing, but can be really helpful if put in place to eliminate the distractions and to allow people to focus.
Yeah.
There's another really great trick that I like to do as well, or tool to put in place. And that's what's called project time. And it's basically giving teams focused, dedicated time multiple times per day, per week, or for a set time during the day when they're on, say, multiple projects. But that's the time that they're going to focus as a team and eliminate all other distractions. It really helps to increase focus and throughput.
Okay, yeah. So that's really good, to the focus, and also just close down that email box, right? So you don't get either the little ping saying something came in. You don't need to jump on it. So,
that's one of the rules within project time, is you're not looking at your emails. You're focusing on your project and your team.
Don't get distracted. Okay, so this is touching a little bit on skills, right? And I think you can say skills is the new currency, and that's something I've been talking on the other podcasts as well, on the episodes. How I see it is the fuel to keep up with skills. It is the fuel for innovation, and the world is changing. We can see it now, and how much have changed over the last year, that suddenly we had to learn not to be in the same room. We had to collaborate, being working with, from distance, or working remotely. So that has changed the way we're working. So how do you see right now with companies? How do they making sure that they are keeping up with new skills, and how do they measure it, and what's the impact for the company?
Yeah, no, so I agree with that skills are the currency for improving performance and for individuals as well, right? I mean, that's the currency that they have, to be able to sell, to be able to offer to businesses. Yeah. So, in my mind, I think that, skills and improving how the organization works from a product development standpoint starts from, a leadership team who wants and desires to put improvements in place. And if you start from that standpoint, then I think businesses can think about ways that they can put in place the skill sets that are going to help teams be better. So agile practices, for instance, right? I mean, it's the way projects are run now. If companies are doing product development using pure waterfall, I would say that mostly there's a lot of waste in that. So building skill sets, say, in how agile can really improve to be implemented in a project team perspective is really important. But But, from an individual standpoint, I think that you just need to be curious. You need to think about, well, how am I, thinking about how to improve what I do every day? And, and you can learn and read and join podcasts and, participate in industry associations. Network. There's all sorts of ways that learning and education and skills can be adopted throughout a career.
Yeah. Oh, that's some good insight there. Back to let's talk about more like agile and lean and the framework around it. And this is how can you scale it? What's the best practice, when you want to achieve sustainability, and then when it's touching, speed to market and the sustainable growth? How do you scale it?
Yeah. So I think starting from, with any kind of change, when I think of change management, which is what this really is at its core, I think of change management as sort of, 3 layers. So the first one is an awareness that there's an opportunity to do things better. And so a broad scale awareness for people so we're going to be able to, improve how, say, product development is done, with this goal of, say, being, 30, 40, 50% faster in product development and serving customers with better products. Then, it's teaching people who are going to be leading that change at the next level down, the tools and the methods and the methodologies such as Agile and putting in place this process, practice, pipeline, say, approach. But then third layer that is coaching is that, people can learn a new method, they can understand something is there for them to do differently, but to actually sustain change, you need ongoing coaching for people to be able to adopt and to change their way of doing work.
Yeah.
And so I think that change management is that sort of framework. But from my experience, the way to make change sustained and to happen in an organization is to provide focus around small improvements that can be done early. Say, in product development, pick a few project teams that you want to really focus support on and coach to be able to improve their performance. Show through that effort some separation in how they do their work and the outcome, right? So if they're that much faster to market with better products, as an example, it helps build and sustain momentum towards the change. So I like to do it that way to start piloting, to build momentum over time and build advocacy by showing separation in the way that projects can be run using lean and agile methods.
Okay. So when you're framing it, right, and you're saying it's sustainable improvements and you make the processes, how do you make sure that when you align and you're saying this is the most efficient way and the best way to get the process, or to get it through the process? How do you write it down, right? And if the team agrees on it, you put it saying this is what we follow this. How many times do you go back and revisit to say, hey, are we still following it? Is it still the best way? The whole reflection on going back to making sure that the process or the method you're using is still best in class.
Yeah, no, that's a core part of continuous improvement. So it's going back and course correcting and doing the evaluation of whether you feel like you're on the right path, or the priorities are the right ones. Yeah. So, and I think another important area for sustaining gains and doing a change is identifying what's important to measure.
Yeah.
Right. So what I like to do is to pick, well, what are the most important metrics for product development success? So do we have the right products hitting the market? We've seen revenue and profitability growth from new products. How do those products compare to, say, business cases that were put together during development? Were there large misses? And so that's a reflection on, well, how do we improve that? Yeah. I also like to measure time to market which is a little bit of a challenge for product development because our projects are very different, but you can establish baselines for project classifications and measure product development time against those baselines for how long it took in the past to get projects of similar scope and scale through product development. And that's a motivating factor as well, when you can show that your revenue, that your time to market is improved with good products. And lastly, there's a great metric, which I think really speaks to top level management, and that's called the vitality rate.
Yeah.
And the vitality rate is measured, it can be measured really after the fact, but it's about, well, what percentage of revenue in any given year is from products that we consider to be new. And that depends on the product life cycle, but say on average, any new product might be 3 years old or newer. And if you're starting this journey and you're in the teens for new products, you've got an opportunity to really improve that vitality. It's the vitality or the health of the new product development process is what it's measuring. That's a great metric.
Yeah.
I've seen that be a CEO metric at large industrial manufacturing companies measured quarterly. And it became a driving factor for how we work to improve product development overall.
Okay. So in terms of learning and creativity, what's the most important thing you can do in your space right now?
I think stay curious. I think, like I mentioned, read, join industry associations. I think, again, listen to podcasts, or is a good way to be able to understand, latest thinking.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the key areas, is to stay curious and know that, that there's a real opportunity to be able to improve your own skills.
Agree. Yeah.
No matter where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And be open-minded and saying, keep learning. That's what I'm saying. It's similar to staying curious, right? Keep learning, because what you don't know today, or you didn't know yesterday, right? You know that today. So that's just, it will grow.
It's actually learn. It should be humbling, because as you learn more, you realize what you didn't know as you learn, right? So being curious and being a lifelong learner, I think that just serves people in general.
Yeah. That takes you to the next one, right? Because what would you tell yourself like 10 years ago?
10 years ago. So I think 10 years ago, I probably would have decided that I would want to consult and help companies based on what I'd learned about improving product development results sooner. So I started consulting about 7 years ago. Yeah. And I help companies do that now full time. I did it part time for a number of years. Now I do it full time. But I think 10 years ago, I had the itch, and I think I probably would have decided to start back then, because it's a lot of fun being able to help companies do better.
Yeah. But what are some of the learnings then, when if you had started earlier? So now, if you're just saying you had it for the last 7 years, what are some of the learnings now that you're like, oh, I should have done that when I started?
Well, I think that the application of Lean and Agile to product development 10 years ago wasn't as well thought through as it is now. And so, I think going back and thinking about being, helping think about how to implement improvements to product development using Lean as a driving force back then would have been something I would have liked to have done. Yeah.
What about, so if I mention Lean, even if it's to coworkers, if it's to friends, they're like, oh, this Toyota, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then if you say Agile, they're like, oh, that, but isn't that more software? So what should we call it? Because there's some resistance when you say Lean, and they're like, oh, that's in the manufacturing, and you're like, no, this is in product development. So what do you name it? Is that why you're saying Lean-Agile, to soften it in?
That's why I use Lean-Agile, because you're right. Lean has a connotation of, it's about cost reduction and it's an operations thing. I had I think, really great fortune in my career of leading a Lean office transformation, where it was all about improving the business to serve customers better and about growth. It wasn't about cost reduction. It never was. So it was about improving the way that the business could serve customers. We cut our cycle time from order to ship in half by focusing through Kaizen events how to improve the way that work was done in the office. And then, use the same principles and methodology to improve product development performance, right? To shrink cycle time from order or from idea to launch. But so I think that's what I tend to think about is that, lean, yes, it is an operational thing, but it's more broad than that. It is a way to think about how to improve performance of a business. It's a mindset about improving performance of the business to get more focus on what's important, to find and eliminate waste, yes, but to serve customers better and to grow your business through it. And when I think of Agile, I think of Agile as a methodology for how to have teams work more effectively together. And it's about the way that teams can really collaborate and be responsive to each other in a way that eliminates a lot of the sort of back and forth and waste that's involved with work.
I like that. Yeah. I know it's mixing it or not mixing it, but call it the Lean Agile is a much better way, and then get away for the cost reduction.
Right.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast today. It was really insightful. Thank you.
Sannah, it's a real pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you today. So thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast and if you'd like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Until then, stay curious and keep learning.